These are the three accessories that I always use when using Revit. A vertical mouse, a gaming keyboard, and a 3D mouse. Not for fun, but for efficiency. In this video, I'll explain how to get the most out of these toys for Revit. Shall we? As you see in this video, I'm using many of the most commonly used commands in Revit, specifically commands from the tabs, structure, modify, and annotate without using the keyboard at all, and without wasting time looking for the buttons in the top bar. By using a programmable left-hand keyboard, as you can see on the screen, I can save a lot of time. I can place columns or beams, copy, move, dimension, use texts, etc. I'm going to start with the simplest one, which is the vertical mouse. And personally, I like the Logitech brand for using in the professional field. I previously used this model, the MX Master 2S, for 6 long years. However, when I started having problems with my wrist, I decided to try some others. I tried the MX Ego, but pressing the middle button with the index finger to rotate or move the screen was still causing me pain problems. Until I tried the MX Vertical. With a market price of between $90 and $100 this mouse allows you to configure most of its programmable buttons. It doesn't have as many as the MX Master, but I made some modifications to avoid wrist pain. The first thing I did was free my index finger from the center button. Now I place the central button on the closest side button, so now the pressure is on the thumb, which is the one with the most strength in the hand. I also modified the top button to use it in the tool I use most in Revit, which is the Create Similar option. I added access to music, etc. to the other buttons. Then I continue with the gamer keyboard. This keyboard for the left hand is from the Razer brand and is called Tartarus V2. With a market price of approximately $100, it is the one I like the most because of the number of buttons you can program. It comes with 20 doubly programmable buttons, making it 40. Another button with up to 8 directions, an access button, and a scroll button as well. There are many options that you can use to set up your buttons, and they adapt very well to what Revit and AutoCAD need, like shortcuts. I'll explain in general terms how to apply a gamer keyboard to a professional software like Revit. To start, this keyboard allows you to create different profiles, whether for AutoCAD, Revit, etc. Each profile has a maximum of 5 key maps to configure. In my case, I have 3 basic ones, one for general tools like copy, move, etc., one more for 3D model tools like columns, beams, walls, etc., and one more for annotation elements like tags, dimensions, texts, etc. I can add a command to each button, for example the escape key, which on the normal keyboard is located on the farthest upper left key. In the same way, I assign it to my Razer keyboard on button number 1 to maintain muscle memory of my left hand. The keys, tab, used to jump between elements in Revit, the control key to add elements to the selection, and the shift key to remove elements from the selection. I also add them to the numbers 5, 10, and 15 respectively. To add shortcuts that Revit recognizes, I have to use macro programming. For that, the keyboard comes with this macro module that can be installed to be able to use it along with Revit. This way, I can generate a sequence of buttons to execute with a single click. For example, in Revit you can move something by hitting the MO keys. In Razer, I can add that sequence of letters without any delay and put it in a macro that I can call move. Then I add that macro to the keyboard number I want, and now every time I press that button, Revit activates the move option. I do this same thing for the general commands that I use the most and place them on this map. However, so far this doesn't make any difference compared to the conventional keyboard, but I've gone a little further and made some slightly longer sequences to take advantage of it. For example, some families can rotate 90 degrees just by hitting the spacebar, but not all can do that. If I need to rotate a detail or text, I have to press the rotate button, then click on the screen, type the value of 90 degrees, and finally press the enter key. This process can be simplified by gathering the entire sequence into a single button. Let me show you this sequence. Here, the macro sends the order to Revit to press the R key, then release it, then press the T and release it again. Then it clicks on the screen, releases it once again, and before starting to press the value of 9, it adds a small delay of 0.1 seconds, only to continue with the 9, the 0, and finally the enter key. Currently, I've got around 15 long sequences that I use a lot, and these are some examples. Beam systems. 80% of the beam systems I model are rectangular, so the button assignated to beam systems includes pressing the keys B, S to start a beam system, followed by SV to start the system sketch. And finally, the REC keys to generate a rectangle. With this, I leave the screen ready for a rectangular beam system with a single click. The same happens with the slabs, where most of them are also square or rectangular. 2. Texts. When you add text to your plans, you can add 4 different types, and although you can add different shortcuts to each one, you always have to start first with the text alias, which is TX, and then the type of text you need. I generally use only 2, the normal one with no leader to which I assign the shortcut SD, and the one with leader called 2 segments to which I give the shortcut DS. So this is how my macros would look like for each of them. Finally, I also add these tools that I use a lot when modeling to my list of buttons, and they have to do with hiding and showing elements on the screen, whether temporary or permanent. Sometimes you just need to hide something so that it doesn't get in the way of completing your drawing and returning it to its original state when finished. I add those types of commands to the buttons on the bottom line there so I can work more efficiently. As I mentioned at the beginning, I use 3 different key maps since the number of commands is quite large. So to switch between key maps without having to open the Razor software, I assign each map to one direction button. Here I can program the button to access a respective map while the button is pressed. Once I release it, it returns to the general map, giving me the ability to access many more commands. And finally, my latest acquisition, this one is more like a whim, but it is also interesting. This 3D mouse, or Space Mouse, is from the company 3D Connection, widely used in industrial design for machinery parts, but it also includes specialized software for Autodesk. You can find it in 3 versions: Compact, Pro, and Enterprise. The first 2 in wired and wireless versions. This little wheel has an incredible level of sensitivity. From the first moment you try to move it, you can control the intensity of each movement. It includes 6 levels of freedom. You can move your model forward and backward, side to side, up and down. You can also rotate it forward and backward in the plane and horizontally as well. With this option, you can force to make only 1 movement at a time, or you can disable it to be able to make 2 or more movements at the same time and get to the place you want more quickly. In this video, I show you the sensitivity of the control. See how with a small movement, the model reacts excellently. Of course, it takes time to get used to the sensibility, but it's definitely worth it. I hope you find this video handy, and remember that time is money. The faster you finish a project, the more profitable it becomes. These types of investments are worth it. See you in the next one.